Well, it's 2024 and Peter Elgar from Brentwood, Essex, the funny old bloke, has survived another year. Yes, I woke up this morning and I'm still alive. That's a bonus. My age, well, I'm 86 now, but luckily still going. And I want to show you what Father Christmas brought me. Well, Father Christmas was in the shape of the old bloke who lives opposite, but he does have a beard and is fairly kind. He knocked on my door the other day in a plastic bag. When I opened it up, there was all this lot inside. And what is it? I've never had one of these. It's a Ricoh KR10 Super with an f2 Ricoh lens, and it's a Vivitar zoom, and it goes from 28 to 105 focal length, and it's got the lens cap as well. What a present! There was a little flash gun, and that flash gun doesn't work because he hadn't used it for so many years. Now, inside here are two LR44 batteries. You know, the normal ones that fit the Pentax ME Supers as well. I had to look in there and they was all corroded. Oh dear. I had to take that out and clean the contacts inside with a Q-tip or a cotton bud with a bit of isopropyl alcohol on it. Cleaned it up. I've had a look in the base plate. Took these off the little screws and had a look in the base plate with my proper screwdriver, and I lubricated it slightly, but it wasn't dirty. It's all in good condition. So it's a Ricoh. Now, of course, Ricoh have taken over Pentax now. Pentax got a very small factory compared with Nikon and Canon, the other makes. People didn't realise how small Pentax factory actually was. And in the 1970s, they couldn't keep up with demand because their Pentaxes were so popular. But unfortunately, it's gone downhill a bit. And Ricoh have taken over the Pentax. That's the second or third time it's been taken over. But it's got a Pentax K, so-called Pentax K mount. Now, in order to take the lens off, you press the usual Pentax release button here and turn it, and the lens pops out like that. Now on the back of the lens you've got your stop down mechanism here, and I thought myself, it's a Ricoh mount, and some people say you really shouldn't put a Pentax lens on a Ricoh mount because it might jam. Well, I've got here a Pentax A series, and it's a 1.7 50mm. It looks exactly the same to me on the same actuating things on the back. The bane, it looks exactly the same. So I'm going to take a chance and put a Pentax lens onto the Ricoh mount. So we find the red dot. Make certain it's off A. Yeah, we've got to make certain with this. Oh yeah, there's the A series. Put it on like that. Well, as far as I can see, that's working. Yes, it seems to be okay. Because when I looked at the Vivitar lens, on the back of the Vivitar lens, there's loads of electrical contacts. And of course, with the KR 10 Super, you don't need all these electrical contacts. There's lots of extra ones there. And I thought, well, what's that for? It says Pentax KA-R-PK. That's the mount on the Vivitar. But that mounts on alright. But it's got extra contacts. Because you can't use program with the Ricoh. It hasn't got it. Well, first of all, so we look at the camera first. Then I'll show you, go through the Vivitar lens. Now I'll show you some snaps taken with it. So here we go. So as you see, it's the Pentax K mount, and inside the camera we've got the lovely good condition, and the mirror hits this bar here, and that's not foam as far as I can see. It hasn't deteriorated at all. It's all clean inside. So that goes on, the mirror comes up. Oh, because I've got it on lock. There. That's going to take ages now because I've got it on a long shutter speed. Because the KR10 Super has got longer shutter speeds. It's going on, still open. It's got changed from 4 seconds. With the Super model, it goes to 16 seconds. And what the other feature was, compared with the ordinary KR10, they put this release button in the middle. It was separate before. Now it's concentric with the shutter speed dial. You can screw in a cable release like that, fire it off with a cable release. It's got a vertically running shutter, so that means it's faster in action. You can use a faster flash synchronizing than with the horizontally run shutter. So the flash synchronizing maximum speed is 125th of a second. So it goes from 1,000th down to 16 seconds. When you set it against the little white dot here. Then you've got the brief, which is brief time. The shutter will stay open for as long as you keep your finger on, or a cable release. It's using the battery all the time, remember, because this camera only works with batteries loading. So the longer you keep the shutter open, the more battery you're using. Then the other setting is A, that is aperture priority automatic exposure. So to take the pictures, you have to know roughly what the depth of field is you want. And you set an aperture on your lens against the little dot here. So that's on f2 at the moment. So in good condition, I normally shoot around f5.6. That's a good standard aperture. And then when the picture's taken, according to how you set your film sensitivity over here, the shutter will stay open in an infinite amount steplessly. So you can have in between shutter speeds. You can have something strange, but you don't know exactly when it's automatic, exactly if you're getting the correct, say a 60th, or you might be getting 1/48th of a second because it's stepless. So that is automatic exposure. Now, of course, you have to know what film you're using. So if it's black and white and colour, you've got to set your ASA here. I was using an out-of-date Ilford HP5, I rated it 250. So we'll just change that to say 400 there. And then we set the little dot to 400. And then that goes right up to 3,200 ASA. I've never used that. Or as low as 12 ASA there. And then this is your exposure compensation dial here. I use that quite a lot. You turn that to give it less exposure that way, and you turn it to give it more exposure where it says plus that way. So your plus, when you're taking stuff with a bright sky or anything which is very white compared with normal, and if you're taking stage photographs, you've got a performer on a stage with a spotlight, you take it to the minus, because a black background would cause a performer to be overexposed. And when I was doing my professional press work, taking all these people like Vince Hill and Cliff Richard singing with his guitar, and it would use minus because they'd be against a black background. So you have to think when you've got it on automatic, you've got to use your compensation dial. Now if you're a bit more advanced, you can use manual exposure. That means you set a shutter speed and an aperture to suit the reading you get off the ground, or something which is classed as 18% grey. You point it down, tarmac is good, green grass is good. So how do you know when the exposure is correct? Well, on the right hand side, inside the viewfinder, which I'm not clever enough to show you, and it's very poor anyway, you have this scale. And here's a scale which you see. You've got B, and that will flash when you get it set to brief time. You've got M, that flashes when you take it off A, so that it's on 1/8 of a second, so M would be flashing. Here's your shutter speeds here. Then you've got battery warning there. And if you want to get a good exposure outdoors, so set it to something like a 2/50th of a second, and for 400 ASA, in poor light, you might be 5.6. So you point it down towards the ground, you turn the aperture until you see one of these little pointers here stops flashing. That one will flash if it's overexposed, and that one will flash if you're underexposing. So you have to change the aperture until neither of those flash. But it is very difficult to see in that viewfinder. It's not very bright. And this little area here is an orange stripe from 30th down to 1 second, which acts as a warning for you to tell you that you should have your camera on a tripod. And then in the viewfinder you get a little black line across the shutter speed you're going to get. So when you have it on 2/50th manually set like that, your little black line will actually be in line with 2/50th like that. If you're using automatic exposure with this camera, like that, with it set to A, the green, you will see sometimes this little line may be in between 2/50th and 125th, or in between 250 and 500th. That is the intermediate shutter speed you get with the automatic exposure. That's the difference. But that is very, very difficult to see. I've had great difficulty. It's very poor. You've got an LCD display of all these numbers on the right hand side, and I have to take my glasses off to see. That's one thing I found poor about that camera, was that display. So the action of the shutter is a vertically running shutter. Take it off, we put it on, say, 1 second. One him on. There, it comes down from the top, and then the other one follows. Now, there is a delayed action on this as well, and I've not found this one doesn't work. This is the self timer here. You're supposed to push that, and I found it, I pushed it. When I pushed it, it doesn't work. No, self timer's broken. Now, if you want to, if you're looking through, when you want to check your reading, there's a little control in the front here, under this guard, and you can press that, and the little bar will move to the shutter speed that you're going to get. You can check your exposure just by pushing that in like that. That's quite a good little feature. Now on the lens you've got your normal aperture setting index here. You've got a red infrared setting here for lining up black and white infrared film, which is discontinuing anyway. You've got your normal depth of field scale here, which hasn't got very many numbers. You've got to interpolate. So let's say we put it to 10 feet, 3 meters, and you're using f8 to take the picture. So you look this side where F8 occurs and you follow that up. So you've got to guess. It's in, we'll go over meters. It's in between 2 and 3 meters that side. And look where F8 occurs here. That's up to 5. So everything between 2.5 to 5 meters will be acceptably sharp when you're focused at 10 or 3 meters and you're using F8. That is acceptably sharp. Because when you enlarge it up to 20 by 16, you'll find only the actual distance is critically sharp. The rest of the zone of sharp focus, it falls off gradually. Now there is a good thing about this camera. It's got a 3mm coaxial flash socket, which you can plug studio flashes. I like that feature. I really do, because a lot of cameras have done away with that now. On the top you've got a hot shoe for X synchronization of an electronic flash that you can push in there. And then remember, the maximum speed you can use is 125th. You can't use 250 or 500 because you'll get a little bar of black across your picture, be cut off. You can use a slower speeds, you'll let more of the ambient light through. Now there's a Ricoh lens, 50mm focal length, f2 aperture. And is it any good? Well, yes, it's quite good. I'll show you some pictures in a minute. It takes a 49mm filter. I've got a lens hood here, marked Minolta, but it does a great job. 49mm goes on like that. Typical Pentax size, 49mm. We'll do the Vivitar next. And we'll look at some snaps. Now, hopefully we don't knock anything off. So this Vivitar lens, actually there's no company, Vivitar, which make lenses. They get other companies to make them. And you used to be able to tell which company made it, whether it was Tokina or so, by the first 2 letters of the number. But I've looked up my list and 77 doesn't appear. So I don't know who made that lens. Komura or Tokina, I don't know. It's multi-coated, minimum aperture is 28 and it goes 105mm. The aperture will vary as you zoom out from 3.5 to 4.5. It varies, you see, because to do one where it doesn't vary is very expensive. It's got 15 elements in 14 groups. A lot of glass. There's the contacts at the back. You pull it to zoom out. Push it back. Now, how do you know what aperture, what focal length you've got? Well, you look at the scale here. So you're on maximum 105mm there, and you can zoom it back, and there we are. You're back on your wide angle. You're 28. Now, how do you set the aperture? Well, you set the everything aperture from this lens to the red dot. So that's now set to f16, and then it's on f8. 5.6, that's maximum aperture 3.5. But this lens has an A setting for our programmable cameras, which will do program exposure, which the KR10 Super doesn't do. In order to get that, you've got to press that in and turn that till the A goes onto the red line. Now, you can't fit that onto the KR10 Super because it doesn't have programmed exposure. So you mustn't do that. But that's a feature for the Vivitar lens which will go on a camera which does have a programmed exposure. There's minimum focus is 2 meters, but you've got a macro setting here. So what you do to get close work, you turn that. You zoom out. See, it doesn't work when it's back. You can't turn it to macro at 50mm. You pull it out to 105. Then you turn it. Then the macro setting comes in, and you can go down to 1.5 meters, and then you focus it by turning the little macro focusing ring here, and it goes in and out of focus very quickly. So that's how you use it for close-up work. It's not true macro, but it's close focusing. So I've done some of that. We'll have a quick look at some snaps now, perhaps. Now you're just waffling like you don't see any pictures. Now these are developed from HP5, out of date, 2011, and the first few were done in 510 Pyro developer. Then I changed to FX37 because the 510 Pyro has quite a high fog level. So this one is a 50mm lens and f2 full aperture, and it's out one of my wife's little things in the garden, so it's sharp here. Because this bit is sticking forwards, that's out of focus at f2. That sharp zone of focus across there is sharp at f2. Now I haven't shown you any stop down because what's the point? It just comes in sharp, doesn't it? So we're going to look at the next one. Oh, that was 510 Pyro. Then we've got the 15mm f2 with FX. Oh, here we are. This is the one with the zoom. Yeah, Vivitar. This is 105mm at full aperture. That's 3.5. Got a different contrast because it's a different lens. Got a different contrast, but it's done the 510 Pyro. That's the one. Now that's sharp there. That's full aperture, 3.5. Okay, so then we go outside. These were in order, but they're not in order anymore now. So this is 28mm of our Rising Sun pub. That's a full aperture, 3.5. So no use showing the stuff stop down when it's all sharp anyway. You want to know how good it is if it's usable. Yeah, it is usable at 3.5. And these are only scans of negatives and computer prints. They're not darkroom prints, so the darkroom print would be better. Here's pouring with rain, you see. I got caught in the rain. Now, with this is 3.5, zoomed out to 105. You can see the pattern, 106 times magnified especially, the pattern on her umbrella there. It's in sharp focus. You can see how the focus goes off behind her. There. That's a 3.5, 105mm on the Vivitar. Yes, that's right. Then we've got one more indoors with the Vivitar with a flash. So I tried it with the flash. My wife's little elf. That was an f4 on the flash, and this was done in 510 Pyro. That's right. That wasn't too bad, but I say it did give a high fog level. Now I only managed to get a couple outdoors because it poured with rain. But I took the 50mm Ricoh at f2. This bloke coming up on a bicycle up an alleyway that I use for test purposes. It's an f2 full aperture, and it's on automatic exposure. This was done in FX37 diluted 1+5. I've tried that developer. It's get less fog level than 510 Pyro. This is a medium distance. Now I held it at waist level, so their feet are cut off because I was guessing. But that's f2, and their faces are quite sharp. Now you can see the sky come out a bit grainy, but that's FX37 developer, and it's diluted 1+5. Give it 10 minutes, but that's sharp there, all right. That was quite good. So what do I think? Well, I mean, for a free camera, it's not bad, is it? The only thing is looking into the viewfinder to see the readout, because I think it's very poor inside. I can't see that little LCD readout to do manual exposure easily, but the automatic exposure's good enough. I haven't done a great deal with it because the weather's so bad. I mean, it's pouring with rain right now. So I'm having to do this in the bathroom with a light on. So the colour balance might be a bit funny. So there we are. That's me Ricoh and me the Christmas present from the old bloke across the road. Oh, you know, solicitor. You never heard of a poor solicitor, have you? Poor plumber. But there's thousands of poor blinking photographers gone broke. Well, wishing you all best of the season for 2024. Thanks so much for supporting my channel. Those of you who buy me a coffee, I appreciate that. Pays for my chemicals, and I treated myself to some of that new Harman Phoenix 200. Nearly 13 quid a roll, nearly fainted. But anyway, that sort of donation helps me with my channel. I'm really grateful. So I'm going to have a drink now because I've got a bit of frog in my throat. Wishing you all the best and hopefully see you again shortly.